you do that? How did you do that?
Welcome back everyone to another ESO build video. Today it's going to be the update to the Simplar build, the Stamina Templar for the Elsweyr Chapter. Now this is focused upon being simple to use, fairly easy to get into, you don't need too much complication inside your rotation. There's a couple of different setups, a basic one and an advanced one, and of course the survivability and damage output and sustain all combined are very well matched across the board, as well as pumping out decent single target and fairly good AoE as well. So here we go. First of all, we're going to go into the stats. Pop a potion. We are on 10k max magic, which isn't that important, of course, but we are on 16.7k max health. That can actually go up if we change our food, and 33.8k max stamina. Again, that can change if we alter our food as well. Now, we're using recovery food, but I'll get to that in a moment. You can use flat stat stuff if you want, but you will have to do some heavy attacking a bit more often than usual. We are on 1.3, almost 1.4k stam recovery, which is massive. We do have an option for that as well, which we can change out, but I'll get to that when we get in the gear. And we're on 61.7% crit chance. We are on 14.5 and 11.5k resist. However, that does change because we have a resistance buff in our rotation, which ups our recovery, but you don't see it there because it's a flat gain rather than something that actually contributes towards your stats on recovery. But you'll see when I get to the skills. And as you can see, our resist went up 22.4 and 19.4. We are extremely tanky as a stamina DPS. We are on 3.7k weapon damage, but again, if you pop a potion, that will go up, of course, to 4.3, and we'll put 64 points into stamina. If you do feel like you're a bit squishy, you can take about 20 points out of here and put them into health instead. Now, we're using the Shadow Munderstone, and we're a stage 4 vampire. Now, the food we're using is expensive, so you don't have to use this if you don't want to. This is our TM Takeaway Broth, and it gives you 3.3k max health, 3k stamina, and it gives us health recovery and stamina recovery all at the same time, which is really, really nice. But if you don't have the money for that stuff, or you don't even want to use it, or you don't have the recipe, or whatever reason, you can use Dubious Command Throne. Instead, it is a lot cheaper to make. You'll probably have a lot more of these than you will these. The stat difference is quite small, so although this is better to use, this will do just fine. However, if you do find yourself being a bit squishy, you can use this instead, which will increase your max health and stamina flat out. It won't give you a recovery bonus like this, which is 338, but you will have the flat stats. So you can do very, very well with this. You'll have a decent amount of sustain, but you will have to heavy attack more often because you don't have the recovery from the food itself. Now, inside dungeons and trials and such, there's lots of ads dying. That's not necessarily a problem because we are, of course, using Repentance, which I'll get to in the skills. But if you are on a single target fight, you might want to chuck in a couple of heavy attacks. We'll get to that when we get to the rotation. That'll make a lot more sense then. So those are your 3 choices with food. This one if you want to go flat out recovery and sustain. This one if you don't have the money for this one. And this if you don't mind heavy attacking occasionally with inside your rotation. Now I'm going to go into the skills. These are going to be explained in detail, so if you have no idea how to work these skills, don't worry, I've got you covered. If you do know and you do want to skip it, then of course be my guest. But if you do ask questions that I've already answered in the comment section below, I won't be responding to them because it's already done. Anyway, here we go. So first of all is Power of the Light. This comes from our Dawn's Wrath skill line. It's a third ability to unlock. Starts off as Backlash. Morph it to Power of the Light. Now this will basically put a light on top of the target. It'll do physical damage initially, but over 6 seconds it will actually copy damage that is done to the target. So up to 20% of the damage that is actually done. Then, once the 6 seconds is over, however much damage you've accumulated inside of this, 20% of it will pop. So there's a 20k hit. Now this can't crit. This can't be enhanced by over-damaging the target. Once all your buffs are applied, whatever this maximum number is as hard as it will hit. But at the same time, any targets infected by this will actually be hit with Minor Fracture and Minor Breach, reducing their physical and spell resistance by 1320 for 9 seconds. This used to be 6, now it's 9. So you can almost have, as long as you're in your decent rotation kind of mode and you're not running around like a headless chicken, you can actually have a full uptime on this Minor Breach and Minor Fracture buff. Debuff. Now it looks like this. After 6 seconds that will pop and do damage. As you can see, bang. 1.1. That was not a lot, was it? But if you do damage first and then let it pop, it will do more. Simple as that. The more damage you do, the more that will pump out, but it will max out at whatever this tooltip says, depending on your buffs. Now, next up is, you need to keep it on the target all the time, by the way. We will be using it twice in our rotation, so it never fails. It will always be active, it will always have this debuff, and once it pops, we'll reapply it again. That will make more sense when we get to rotation anyway. Rearming Trap is next. It's in a Fighters Guild skill line. 5th ability to unlock. You need Fighters Guild 8 for this, so it takes a little bit of time to get there. Starts off as Beast Trap, morph it to Rearming Trap. Now, this basically puts a trap on the ground. Anything caught inside of that, obviously, will be immobilized, unless it can't be, but the trap will still go off. It will do physical damage over time, and it will also apply minor force to you. This minor force bonus is massive to the Templar. It's massive to everyone, but to the Templar above all because of passives, which we'll get to. But this does increase your critical damage done by 10%. Now, it lasts 6 seconds, but because it's a rearming trap, once the 6 seconds is up, it will pop and fire again. So we'll put it under the target here. Bosses, remember, can't be immobilized, neither can the skeleton, but the dot does still fire. Now, after the 6 seconds is up, it will rearm itself and pop again. That minor force buff is amazing. We do need that up as much as possible. So do not let your trap run out. You've got 12 seconds to reapply it, and we do it every rotation, so it's absolutely fine. Now, next up is Blazing Spear. Now, this is not a choice people usually go by for a stamina DPS. Starts off as Spear Shards, morph it to Blazing Spear. It's the 4th ability to unlock in the Adrix Spear skill line. This puts a spear, wherever you cast it, in fact. You can put it on the target or cast it to someone if they need it. But this basically, while it's down, your allies can take a synergy from it, and it will give them almost 4k back for max magicka or max stamina, whichever one of their pools is highest. But this does magic damage every 1 second for 8 seconds. We're not using it for that damage. That does contribute. It's not massive, considering we are stam built, and our max resources would be a higher outcome if they were magicka for this particular skill, but we use this for our Adrix Spear passives, and I'm going to explain that when we get to the passive section. That's going to make a lot more sense. For now, just note that we've got this here. Next up is our main spammable. This is Biting Jabs. This is also in our Adrix Spear skill line. The first ability to unlock starts off as Puncturing Strikes, morph it to Biting Jabs for the stamina morph of it. This will actually do area of effect damage every hit, like this. Anyone caught in there will take damage, but the closest enemy, so the one at the front, the main one you're actually hitting, will take the highest amount of damage, and the rest will all take damage as well, but a lesser amount every single hit. The final strike reduces the movement speed of the closest enemy by 70% for 2 seconds as well, so it's a massive snare, but that's not necessarily important for PvE. But activating this also grants you Major Savagery, increasing your weapon crit rating by 2191. Now, we do have Major Savagery on our potions anyway, so that's not necessarily relevant for us. But if you run out of potions, you're on trash pots for now, then at least you've got your Major Savagery on both bars, because this will fire, and then when you swap, you've still got it. So you can keep 100% uptime on that with your potions or with this ability. But above all, it's a damage ability. You basically just run up to the target and slap it about a bit. The target at the front will take the most damage, and the ones at the side will all take damage as well, but he'll be hit the hardest. Very, very simple. You need that in your rotation all the time. We actually use 2 every rotation, so it's very, very strong, but you do have to make sure that, of course, you can sustain it, but that will make sense when we get to the rotation anyway. Rend and Slashes, this is in a dual wield skill line. This is the second ability you unlock. Morph it from Twin Slashes to Rending Slashes. Now, of course, you can go with Blood Craze if you prefer, and it will give you a damage over time equivalent of this. Is exactly the same, but you will actually heal once every 2 seconds. So that is very, very helpful if you feel like you're a little too squishy, or you feel like you're struggling with your health sustain, that kind of stuff. But if you do take Rend and Slashes, it is slightly higher on the initial hit. So you will get a little bit more damage out of it, but it's not that noticeable, especially if you find yourself being a bit squishy. So the choice is yours. You can have Rend and Slashes or Blood Craze, but either one of the two is absolutely fine, because the damage over time, the bleed over 10 seconds, which ignores resistances, by the way, is exactly the same. So you want to keep this in your rotation as well. Every time it runs out, you need to reapply it, but our rotation will do that for us. Next up is Flawless Dawnbreaker. Now, this is on the front bar only for stats. As in the Fighters Guild skill line, you need Fighters Guild level 10. Morph it from Dawnbreaker to Flawless Dawnbreaker. We basically never use this ability. While slotted, you gain 5% extra weapon damage, and there are other passives involved as well, but this just stays on the front bar just for that. Now, back bar, you got a bit of a flex slot here. Now, first of all, we've got Repentance. This is our Restoring Light ability. You do need a couple of these on your bar to start with while leveling up. It's the third ability you unlock. Starts off as Restoring Aura, morph it to Repentance. Now, as you can see, when you consume a corpse, so you just activate this, it's free. When you consume a corpse, you will actually heal you and your allies for 3k health per body. And you'll also get 3k stamina for you for each corpse. So you can actually just consume the dead bodies, get loads of stamina back, a massive heal, and you can heal your friends as well. Note the stamina bonus is for you, the heal is for you and your group. They don't get stamina back as well. While slotted also, minor fortitude, minor endurance, and minor intellect, increasing your health, stamina, and mag recovery by 10%. So while you're on the back bar, your recovery is higher. Now, this is used in situations where things die quite quickly, and you can just keep your health sustain up, your stam sustain, you'll never run out of juice. This is where you can use your flat food. If you're using your flat health and stam food and no recovery in there, there's lots and lots of enemies, they're dying quite quickly, you can get away with this and you'll never run out. But if you are struggling, and if there aren't enough enemies dying, because maybe it's a single target fight and it's just a big stack and burn fest with you versus the boss and your mates, well, basically what you can do instead is you can switch to Vigor, because you may need an activatable heal which doesn't require any corpses or conditions. So you want to go into the Assault skill line and unlock Resolving Vigor. You can use that instead if you want. Your recovery will be different, but you will get this benefit from a heal at your leisure, basically. Or, failing that, if you find that you are not squishy in the slightest, and you are very comfortable, you can slot a Fighter's Guild ability instead, and you will get an extra bonus from the Fighter's Guild passives for it being on your bar. We'll go into that again, like I said, when we get to the passives, but those are your three options. Repentance, if there's loads and loads of ads, and you can utilize this. You can have Vigor on there if you need it, or you can put a Fighter's Guild ability on there for weapon damage increase from your passives, which, again, like I said, I will come to. Choice is yours. Poison Injection is next. This is on our bow skill line. This takes forever. 38 you need in bow to unlock this. Now, once you've got it, however, take Poison Arrow and morph it into Poison Injection. This does a single target damage over time, poison effect to the target. Just a single target dot ticking over. But when the target is under 50% health, this gets stronger. The lower their health, the stronger this gets, and it can get up to a maximum of 260% stronger. So you must keep this on a target at all times. It's very, very powerful. Next up is Razor Caltrops. This is also on our Assault skill line. You will need to go to PvP for this. So you can go to Cyrodiil if you want, or you can go into Battlegrounds and just keep going until you've got it. Basically, your alliance points in Battlegrounds are guaranteed. Even if you lose, you will still get points. So if you die and you suck at PvP, or you're just having a really bad day and it's not working in your favor, you will still get points. So Battlegrounds, smash it out, get this done, and then get out. Starts off as Caltrops, by the way. Morph it to Razor Caltrops. This is very, very simple. Massive area of effect. You can cast it wherever you want, but obviously hit the targets. When it lands, it does an initial hit, and then it does damage over time, physical damage I might add, every 1 second for 12 seconds. It's very, very powerful. Keep this in your rotation at all times, but do not spam it because it is expensive. It does apply a snare as well, so that's important for some content, especially the bombers in VMOL in the last corridor, but for the rest of the time, the movement speed bonus is not necessarily something that's that important. The rest of it is the damage. You need to keep this down. Restore and Focus. Now this is in our Restore and Light skill line. This is a 5th ability you unlock. You do need this. Starts off as Rune Focus. Morph it to Restoring Focus, because this is a stamina morph of it. When you cast it, you have a resistance buff. So, it goes down on the ground, and let me read this properly for you. You get Major Ward and Major Resolve, increasing your physical and spell resistance by 5280. You also gain 240 stam recovery every 1 second, which is nuts. It doesn't show in our stats as actual recovery, but it does give us 240 stam back every 1 second while this is active, and it lasts 20 seconds. But while standing in your rune, your physical and spell resistance granted is increased by 50%. So if we look here at our stats, we are on 19.8 and 16.8 resistances. But if we stand in it, 22.4 and 19.4. Our Major Ward and Major Resolve is boosted. Our flat buff is actually increased by this if you stand in it. So, for the most part, if you can help it, you want to be inside your rune. If you have to recast it, so be it, but failing that, if you leave it and come back in, you will get the bonus, but if you let it run out, all of it will fall off. So keep this up as much as you possibly can. It's very, very powerful, not just for your sustain, but for your survival as well. We're very, very tanky. That is the only Major Ward and Major Resolve buff in the game that is boosted. Everybody else gets one of these, or you can supply one to your group if you're a warden, but this is a flat bonus, and this is flat out boosted by this particular skill. Very, very powerful. Next up is Endless Hail. This is in our bow skill line. Second ability to unlock. Starts off as Volley, morphed to Endless Hail. Now this is extremely powerful. You must keep this on the target at all times. AoE on the ground, just like Caltrots, just a little smaller. And anything inside of here will take damage over time every half a second. It's a rapid firing dot. It's very, very powerful. Keep this up. So this and this must be on the ground at all times while you stand in your rune and stab stuff. The Maelstrom weapon as well boosts the hell out of this, so you've got to keep this down all the time. Finally, our ultimate is in the Adric Spear skill line. This is Empowering Sweep. Starts off as Radial Sweep, morph it to Empowering Sweep. Now this got boosted. Before it used to give us major protection. Now it doesn't. It grants us Empower. So while this is active, all of your light attack damage is increased by 40%. Now when you fire this, very simple, looks like that. Enemies caught in that will take damage. Every 2 seconds, they'll take physical damage, and of course they'll get the initial hit as well. It's really, really strong. And the duration is extended by 2 seconds for each enemy hit. So if you hit 1 target, you get 8 seconds. If you hit 2 targets, you get 10 seconds, and so on and so forth. While this is active, however, you grant yourself Empower, increasing your light attack damage by 40%. Every single light attack you do will be 40% stronger. This is incredibly important. Our rotation covers light attacks. It's not a problem, but this will buff the hell out of it. So if you are in a big ad pull, for example, and you fire that, you can have a very high uptime on your own light attack bonus. So it's really, really powerful. You must use this as much as possible. Inside our rotation, we can actually use this every second rotation, 100% guaranteed. So this is awesome. Make sure you use this, not Dawnbreaker. Dawnbreaker's on there for stats, and Power and Sweep is the ultimate you must use. Now we're going to explain passives, and this Blazing Spear here will start making a bit of sense. So, first of all, Adric Spear. Your critical damage is increased by 10%. So remember we have Minor Force already, increasing our critical damage by 10%. This also increases it by 10%. Also, it increases the damage done to blocking targets. So if you're up against something that is holding block, maybe an enemy has a block phase, or even in PvP, in fact, this will actually do extra damage to blocking targets. So they mitigate a certain amount, but you go through it a bit. This will grant you minor protection for 3 seconds, reducing damage taken by 8% if you activate an Adric Spear ability. So if you cast one of these, or this, or even your Empower and Sweep. Any of those that you cast, every single time you cast it, you reapply minor protection to yourself. It's very, very nice. So you've got to get this. When you deal damage, this is the one we want. When you deal damage with an Adric Spear ability, you have a 25% chance to deal 5338 physical damage or 1854 magic damage, whichever one is higher. And this effect can happen once every half a second. That is why we have this. This is an Adric Spear ability, and it does damage every 1 second. That ability to do extra damage can proc every half a second. So while we've got this down, we have this down as well, ticking over. And the two together, combined, doing damage over top of each other, both have a chance to fire that free damage. Your Empower and Sweep does as well, so they can start overlapping. You can have Empower and Sweep running, you can have this running, and you can have your jabs running. And most of your damage can come from the free damage. This here, this Burning Light, is absolutely mental. If you've got access to combat metrics and you're using this particular build and you are not using Blazing Spear, maybe perhaps from the previous patch, you will notice a significant increase now by having the extra Adric Spear ability running. The overall output of the damage just from this passive alone can sometimes be anywhere between 7 to 10% of your entire DPS. It's very, very powerful. So although this may be a magic-based ability, which we can sustain, of course, we can use one magic ability every rotation, this will actually contribute to our physical and stamina-based stats when it comes to this passive. So it's very, very strong. You can, of course, swap this to Deadly Cloak if you feel like you're in a situation where you need to reduce the incoming AoE damage, but for now, keep Blazing Spear on. It's very, very strong. Not just for you, but for your group as well, because you get more resources close by. Also, Balanced Warrior increases your weapon damage by 6% and your spell resistance by 2640. That is why our spell resistance is higher, because on the Templar we have slightly higher spell resistance than physical. Dawn's Wrath. Now, this here increases the duration of your Sunfire, Eclipse, Solar Flare, and Nova abilities by 2 seconds. We're not actually using Nova, but if you do want to use this, you need to get Solar Prism, and basically you can put this down as a mitigating effect. So if you're healers, for example, are focused on Warhorns, or you don't have any Templar healers, and you do need a Nova for the situation that you're in, you can, of course, put this on here if your group requires it. But just note, you will lose this bonus here. So it's normally for, like, mitigating purposes. If you are in a group where you feel that everyone's a little bit too squishy, you need a Nova every so often, maybe your leader will tell you to slot this, but you might not have to. It's a choice. But if that is the case, then obviously you want this because it makes it last longer. If you're not using Nova ever, and you're already comfortable with your setup as your group, then you don't need this passive. Casting a Dawn's Wrath ability generates 3 ultimate, and this effect can happen once every 6 seconds. Note, this here lasts 6 seconds. It's from the Dawn Wrath skill line. So, when we apply it inside combat, we will get ultimate from it. When it runs out, after 6 seconds, we'll reapply it again. We are inside our cooldown for this. Every 6 seconds, we are guaranteed 3 ultimate based on our rotation. Really, really powerful. And based on the fact that we have only a 72 ultimate cost, that actually contributes to a rather large amount. So it's really, really handy. Make sure you get this passive ASAP. Casting a Dawn's Wrath ability grants you minor sorcery to you and your group for 20 seconds, increasing spell damage by 10%. So, activating this gives you and your group 20 seconds worth of increased spell damage. And of course, we use this every 6 seconds, so we are never going to run out of this. Reduce the magicka, stamina, and ultimate cost of your abilities by 4%. Everything we use is now cheaper with this passive. Solid. Get it as soon as possible. Restore and Light. Now, you don't need all of these. We are using 2 abilities from here, occasionally. You don't have to have this on all the time, but it is really, really nice, so I would recommend it. But increases the healing effects from your Restore and Light abilities by up to 12% in proportion to the severity of the target's wounds. That does affect this, so your heals can be stronger from this flat out. While standing in your own cleansing ritual, rune focus, or rite of passage area of effect for up to 4 seconds after leaving it, you gain minor mending, increasing your healing done by 8%. So you do actually get a minor mending bonus while standing in your rune, and for a few seconds afterwards. So you can see here in my buff time, you see the green and yellow kind of effect with a purple background. When I leave, that will run out after 4 seconds. But if I stay in the rune, I get it back again. So stay in there, your heals will be boosted. And we are healing while we're doing damage. And that will make sense once I get to the gear. So that is important. Also, enemies standing in your cleansing ritual, rune focus, or rite of passage have their movement speed reduced. That's not that important, but it's an extra bonus regardless. This one here, we're not using any of these abilities that are effective, so you don't actually need the Lightweaver passive if you don't want to. And this one here increases your resurrection speed by 20%. As a Templar, you can res faster than anybody else in the game, except for the Necro Ultimate, which is broken as hell, but we'll go into that in the next video. Also, resurrected allies return with 100% more health. So you wouldn't come back with all your health. Normally you come back with a set amount. This increases the amount you come back by, and also gives you a 50% chance to fill an empty soul gem after successful resurrecting someone. So if you are carrying empty soul gems, that's actually beneficial to the Templar, because when you resurrect someone, you use a soul gem, but you could fill an empty one at the same time, so it doesn't cost you anything. You use one, you get one back. Now, dual wield, of course, is very, very important. You want to get all of these abilities here, all these passives. This increases the damage done by dual wield abilities by 20% against targets under 25% health. So your light attacks and any dual wield abilities you're using are increased. Your heavy attacks also. Anything that you do with your dual wield is increased at low health. Increase your weapon damage by 6% of your offhand's weapon. Offhand is always a little bit weaker than the main hand, so this does push that up a little bit. Reduces the cost of dual wield abilities by 15%. Helps with our sustain. Goes without saying you need it. Gives you a 15% damage bonus when attacking stunned, immobilized, disorientated, or silenced enemies. This is very helpful because 9 times out of 10 your tank or your group in general are dealing with lots of CC effects for the enemies. When they are affected by these, you will actually do more damage. Twin blade and blunt. Now, I went over multiple different combinations, loads of different stuff, maces, daggers, axes, swords, bits and pieces of each, and all of them performed quite well. But for this particular build, because we are focusing on as much crit as possible based on what we have, we want to make sure that we utilize the daggers a lot. The initial setup for this before the video was actually made was 1 dagger and 1 sword, which was very, very nice because we had a crit bonus from the dagger and we had a flat bonus from the sword, the 3% increase. But over time, I adapted to 2 daggers, altered the setup a little bit, and the 2 daggers did outperform by about 1 or 2k overall. If, however, you want to stay with one sword and one dagger, or one axe and one dagger, then that's absolutely fine. Sometimes you won't find any difference at all, but overall, on average, the 2 daggers for this particular setup did outperform, because we're focusing so much on high crit and high crit damage. Now, we are using a bow, of course. We want to get all these passives as well. Gives you a damage bonus for up to 12% against enemies at longer range. Now, of course, that's very important if you're approaching the fight. So on the way in, you want to get your volley in. You want to get your poison injection in. On the way towards the fight, it will do more damage. And if you have to get out inside mechanics and you're still doing stuff with your bow, and you're not quite in the face of the enemy, you'll do more damage from range. So that is important. You do want to get that passive. Increases weapon crit rating. Of course, we do have a weapon crit rating with our daggers, and on the back bar, we have it with the bow as well. Reduces the stamina cost of bow abilities. Goes without saying, you want the cost down. When dealing damage with a light or heavy attack, you basically add 1 bonus, which can stack up to 5 times, of 5% increased damage to your bow. 5-second cooldown, 5-second timer as well. So if you do a light attack, you can see at the bottom there's an eye with a pink background. Every time I light attack, it will add 1 more stack. And again, up to a maximum of 5, but it's got a 5-second timer. So if I don't light attack again between then, it will fall off. And if I do, it will continue and it will stay at max. So in total, you can get a maximum of 25% increase of damage to your bow. But because we're using 2 different types of weapons, we're using daggers on the front and a bow on the back, we're not going to get the full potential of that. But you will get a set amount. So if we're on our back bar, for example, we'll usually do 1, 2, 3. 3 light attacks on our back bar. So we're always going to get that 15% increase to damage to our bow abilities. Then we'll swap to our front bar, and eventually it will obviously fall off. When we come back to the back bar again, it will go back on again. Now, that is important. So we won't get the max potential out of it, but we will get some of it. So you do want to get this passive. It does add up very, very quickly, especially with volley. Hasty Retreat, of course, grants you major expedition for 4 seconds after you dodge roll, increasing your movement speed. So if you are in trouble and you dodge roll, you can move really, really fast afterwards. That's really, really important while working with mechanics, because you might dodge roll out but need to get in really, really quickly, and that gives you the speed buff. Or you might have to dodge roll out and get out really, really quickly, and it gives you the speed buff. Whichever situation applies to, it will actually help you anyway. You're faster after you dodge roll. Just be careful, though. There is a cooldown to a negative effect when you dodge roll. So if you dodge roll once, that's a set amount of cost. If you dodge roll again, you get penalized and it costs you more within 4 seconds of each other. So be careful with that. It can cost you a lot if you start dodge rolling one after the other after the other. Light armor, we are using 1 piece of light armor, so you want these 3 passives here to give you a reduction to snare and sprint cost. You also have magic recovery and reduction to cost for magicka as well. So for the 1 piece we're wearing, it does reduce the cost of our spear and give us recovery back. And also increases your spell resistance. These 2 here require 5 pieces, you don't need them. Medium armor, of course, we're using 5 pieces of medium. This will increase your weapon crit rating based on how many medium pieces you have fitted. This will increase your stamina recovery and reduction to cost for stamina abilities. This one is for sneaking, so it's not that important unless, of course, you're going for March of Sacrifices. So you do want to get this, but it's not as important as these ones. Agility, of course, is very important. It increases your weapon damage by 15%. That requires 5 pieces, by the way. And this one here increases your movement speed when sprinting by 3% and reduces the cost of dodge roll. So when we do dodge, it's cheaper, and when we sprint, it's cheaper as well. Very important. Heavy, you do need these 3 passives. These 2 require 5 pieces, so they're no good to us. But these first 3, this will give you a physical and spell resistance bonus for each piece worn. This will give you a health recovery bonus, which isn't that important because we're a vampire, but it will also give you resources back once every 4 seconds for taking damage. And this will give us a 2% increase to our maximum health for each piece worn, by the way. We are a vampire. You will need these. This one increases your magicka recovery and your stam recovery by 10%. Remember, we do want the stam recovery so we can keep up our damage and rotations. And of course, we do want mag recovery because we are using Blaze and Spear. And here, Undeaf. When you are under 50% max health, your damage incoming reduces. You take less and less and less damage per hit the lower your health. Up to a maximum of 33% damage mitigation while you're under 50%. So the lower you go, the tankier you are, the less likely you are to die. Fighters Guild, of course, this is important. This is another reason why this is on the bar and why this is on the bar and why you can put a Fighters Guild ability here if you think you can handle it. Now, this is Intimidating Presence, of course. You do want to get this because it reduces the cost of your Fighters Guild abilities if they cost stamina, which this one does. So we are going to need to get the cost down for that. We use it every rotation. This will increase your weapon damage by 3% for each fighter's guild ability slotted. Now that is extremely important. This is why we're here. This here gives us a 5% bonus, plus that 8% for being a fighter's guild skill. This gives us another 3%. So that's why we've got 6% across the board on this bar. On the back bar, we have no bonus. Now, for argument's sake, everything's going fine. You are surviving. You're tanky. The healers are doing their job. You're not struggling. You don't necessarily need a heal on your bar. If you don't need one, which is very, very rare, you can, of course, put Rearming Trap on the back bar. You won't need to ever touch it on the back bar. It can just be there for 3% increased flat stats. But personally, I would stick to Repentance all day long because you've got the recovery bonus for both your Magicka and Stamina. And at the same time, you can use this when people or enemies die, so you can get stuff back. The choice is yours, whichever way you want to go. Some people like to do double bar Rearming Trap just for the stats, but if you can survive it, sure. If you can't, I wouldn't bother. Very, very rarely people can survive without a heal. Next up, of course, is Banish the Wicked. If you kill Undead, Daedra, or Werewolf, and you will, you'll gain 9 ultimate. So where I said we can use this every second rotation, if you're killing loads and loads and loads of Daedra, Undead, or Werewolves, you could use this every rotation. It's nuts. This ulti gen from here is crazy, alongside what we have here. Plus you get 3 a second for doing a light attack or heavy attack for 8 seconds anyway. Your passive regen for your ultimate is insane. This here, your Fighter's Guild abilities deal an additional 20% extra damage to Undead, Daedra, or Werewolves. Now, of course, our Beast Trap is a Fighter's Guild ability. It does do damage. That is going to help. This one here is for Cyrodiil. It's not important. Mage's Guild, nope. Sigigorda, nope. Thieves Guild, nope. Undaunted, yes. This here, you will get resources back for taking a synergy. It doesn't matter what the synergy does. Doesn't matter if it's a spear, a bubble, blood funnel, bone shield. Doesn't matter what it is. Whatever the effect of that ability is its own synergy. For you taking the synergy, full stop, you will get 4% of all of your resources back. Health, magic, and stamina. Take the bloody synergies. And Undaunted Metal as well increases your max health, stam, and magicka by 2% for each type of armor worn. We're wearing 3 different types. 1 light piece, 1 heavy piece, and 5 medium. So we're in 3 different types. We get 2% for each one. We have a 6% increase to our max stats across the board. Now, we are, of course, an orc. You can be a wood elf, a dark elf, a Khajiit, red guard, imperial, whatever you want. You can be anything you want, but the orc did perform very, very well flat out because of its flat bonuses. But other races did very, very well also. In fact, the wood elf was almost infinite sustain. It was nuts. But the choice is yours. Personally, I preferred the orc because of the flat weapon damage bonuses, but you can go with other stuff if you want. But here we go. You've got 2k max stamina, which is the highest flat stam bonus in the game. You have 1k max health. The Imperial does actually have 2k, so you can have more health with the Imperial, but the Orc's max health bonus is very, very nice. When you deal damage, however, with a weapon ability, you heal for 600, which can crit and does benefit from mending and all that kind of stuff, so your minor mending does contribute to this, so you can have a high heal. You can get really high heals from this, but this happens once every 4 seconds. Now, when I say weapon ability, that's light attack, a skill, even the bow skill. So if you've got Endless Hail running, and you just run off, while that's doing damage, you can heal once every 4 seconds from it. It's bloody mental. Very, very powerful passive indeed. Keeps you up in the fight, and so do our sets, which is why I've mentioned you don't necessarily need a heal on this one. But we'll get to that. And this, of course, increases your weapon damage by 258 and reduces the cost of sprinting and increases your movement speed. So we're very, very fast. We have high weapon damage. We have high stamina. We have high health. And we heal from doing damage. Very, very nice across the board. Closest to this, I would personally say, was Imperial. But you can be any of the other races you like. It's entirely up to you. There's barely anything in it. Finally, the most important passive in the game, in my opinion, is medicinal use. There is a video link in the description how to get alchemy leveled in about 15 minutes flat. Max it all out. You don't have to keep your points in here. You can just dump them and put them into medicinal use. But this will increase the duration of our potions by 30%. Now, this is important because we are using weapon power pods. This will give us major brutality, increasing our weapon damage by 20%. Grants major savagery as well, which we do have covered with our bite and jabs already, but this will keep the uptime on it just in case we're not doing any damage at the time. And also in major endurance, increasing our stam recovery, plus we get stamina back. Keep these up 100% of the time, and your potions last longer than the cooldown. Every single time your potion is grayed out, you can't use it, and when you can see it, pop it. Keep this up all the time. If you don't have medicinal use, this will only last about 36 seconds, and you will have gaps in your sustain and your damage output. Very, very handy indeed. Now we're going to get to the gear. And this is why I mentioned about healing and all the rest of it not being too much of a problem. We do heal from doing damage with our weapon abilities or our weapons themselves. And of course we heal from this. Now this will give you a weapon crit bonus, which is a chance base, by the way. It's not crit damage, it's chance. Max stamina, weapon crit again. And when you deal critical damage, which we will because we're set for it, you have a 10% chance to increase your weapon damage by 449 for 10 seconds. While this effect is active, your critical strikes heal you for 609 health. This effect can occur once every 15 seconds. We actually heal from doing damage. So this has a 10-second uptime, a 5-second downtime. But it's very, very easy to proc. Now, what you're looking for is a yellow glow around my hands, like ropes wrapping around them, and you'll hear a very high-pitched, strange tone. So basically, all you need to do is do critical damage. So we do this. You can see my hands. Listen to this. You can hear it, and you can see it. They're wrapped up in, like, thorns. That is when Briarheart is active. When that's active, all of your critical damage will heal you. It's absolutely mental. Very, very powerful. It's been in the game for a really long time, actually, but it's still very, very solid. Now, we've got 2 weapons of it, so we can proc it only on our front bar. We don't want it to fire out on our back bar, because if we do that, then there's a very strong possibility that by the time we get to our front bar, it's borderline falling off, and we could actually lose out on flat damage. We want the most out of our damage, the weapon damage bonus, in fact, on our front bar if we can help it. So we put these on the front bar only. There's 2 daggers. You can get these from a quest, by the way, so they don't have to be that expensive. 1 Nirnhoned, 1 sharpened, and we are using the Briarheart jewelry as well. 2 bloodthirsty, 1 infused. So we've got very high weapon damage, and we've got really good execute power. Now, we don't actually have an execute as such. We just have passives in our skills and our bonuses to certain weapons we're using. So there's a dual wield passive where you do more damage, and of course we've got poison injection, which does more damage the longer the lower the health of the target. We don't have something that we spam. So this does help us. The Bloodthirsty ×2 does actually push all of that as well. So it's really, really nice. Just keep doing what you're doing and you'll do more and more damage. Nirnhoned here. Sharpened here. 2 Bloodthirsty, 1 infused. Very, very simple. Now we're using poisons as well. Double dot poisons. I will put this on the website as well as to what you need to use recipe-wise. But it's Alkahest, Nirnroot, Nightshade, and Fleshfire Lava. These 2 damage over time poison procs can apply just by doing light attacks or heavy attacks with your weapons. So this will actually be very, very active. And it's 2 dots. Both of which have a chance to proc a poison status effect, which is a 6-second damage over time poison effect as well. So you can do really, really high dots with this. It's very, very strong indeed. So make sure that you keep these with you as much as possible. If you can't afford to make these, although the materials are extremely cheap and you just preference not to use them, of course then you can put different glyphs on these bars here. You can have a poison one on here, for example, just flat poison damage, and a stam return one on here. It's up to you, but I would highly recommend putting poisons on because they are very, very strong and they do proc all the time. Back bar is a Maelstrom bow. Now, you don't have to have the Maelstrom bow here. You can have a agility bow on the back bar if you want, just for the flat stats while you're on the back bar, or whatever you want, as long as you have access to something that's got a 2-piece bonus that will benefit stamina and weapon damage type abilities. So flat stamina, flat weapon damage, or weapon crit. It's up to you. But if you have the Maelstrom bow, this will be much, much stronger, obviously. You want it to be infused, and you want to put weapon and spell damage enchant on the back bar. Why? Because on the back bar, you can proc the Berserker glyph, which we've got on. As you can see, there's a sword in my buff timers there. Infused gives us a longer duration and a shorter cooldown, so you can actually keep this up 100% of the time. Now, the trick to this is obviously, if it's now about to run out, you can just reapply it. But you don't have to do that. Any area of effect weapon abilities will actually proc the glyph, even if you're on a different bar. So all you need to do is apply an area of effect one. Poison injection doesn't work because it's single target and is connected to the target. So the light attack will work, but the poison injection will fire it to start with, but then it will run out. You can see the dot's still running, but the glyph isn't. Endless Hail, however, is area of effect. It's fire and forget. You don't just leave it on the target, you leave it where you wanted it. If the target moves, obviously, it doesn't get the glyph all the time, but as you can see, mine is constantly running. So it will just reapply as long as the dot is running, even if I'm on the front bar. So let's just confirm that as well so you can see it. There's the proc. I'll swap bars and leave the dot running. 0. Back up again. Keep that dot up all the time. As long as it's on a target, that glyph will always fire. 100% uptime on the Berserker enchant. Very, very powerful indeed. But, like I said before, the Maelstrom weapon does boost volley even more. Every single half-second tick of volley will get progressively stronger and stronger and stronger. You've got to keep this up all the time. Don't let it run out. Next up is the monster set. We want heavy and light. In any order, whether it's the shoulder or the helmet, doesn't matter, but one heavy, one light. You can use Veladreth if you want. Infused on the head, Divines on the shoulder. And put max stam enchants on both. This will give you a weapon damage bonus, and I'm sure you've seen already the spores that keep firing out. This one here. That will only hit one target per ball, by the way. One target cannot be hit with all three. And it will do disease damage in a single target hit. It's very, very powerful. It's got a 9-second cooldown. I would recommend this as a flat bonus because it is very, very strong. But if you don't have access to this, or maybe you don't like it, you can, of course, use Storm Fist instead. Now, Storm Fist is a little different. This will actually apply a big fist out of the ground. Where is it? Come on. It's not going to fire now. It's going to embarrass me. Come on. There you go. One of those. Boom. Now, that is very different. It does proc a little bit more often. It's a lot faster. It's a 8-second cooldown instead of 9, but it lasts for 4 seconds. It will do damage every 1 second for 3 seconds in the form of shock damage, which can apply minor vulnerability, by the way, from a status chance. And also then at the 4th second, it does a big boom of physical damage. The physical damage is slightly less. The shock damage is obviously contributing towards it. So it does end up doing very similar damage to Veladreth, but of course, this doesn't require you to be anywhere near the target. You can actually fire it from long range. So as long as something's being hit, you can actually make it pop out of the ground. And it's not going to do it. There you go. Now, the other difference is instead of having a weapon damage bonus, this has stam recovery. If you are a wood elf with this set on this build, you basically can't run out of stamina. If you're using recovery food on the orc, maybe one heavy attack every so often, you can't run out of stamina. But Veladreth did do a little bit more damage. Not by much though, only by about 1k overall. So it's up to you. You can do one that gives you a flat weapon damage bonus and nice damage close up, or you can use one that has a really good recovery bonus and it can fire no matter where you are. It will actually fire under the target that's taken damage rather than the way you're facing. It's very different. But again, the choice is yours. Now, there's two versions of this. There is this flat version where you can get deadly in all body pieces. And this will give you a weapon damage bonus, a crit bonus, a weapon damage bonus again, and increase the damage of all your physical, bleed, poison, and disease damage over time abilities. Now, don't know if it was too obvious already, but this is physical damage over time. This is a physical bleed. This is physical damage over time, the Beast Trap.
I love Winnies. Drinks
This is
all
Captain
around.
Jack's. So is this. That's poison, that's physical, and this is physical. As you can see, and the two poisons from our poison on our weapons and also the poison status effect. Every single one of those is damage over time that is boosted by this set. So, deadly is very strong if you can get hold of it. You can buy it from Cyrodiil or you can even buy it off the market. It's quite easy to obtain. Now, if you are comfortable with that, stick with it. So you've got Briarheart and Deadly, and then you've got Veladreth or Stormfist. However, if you want to go that extra mile and you think you can keep the uptime up on it, of course, Reliquin is very, very powerful single target, but it comes with a condition. This gives you a weapon crit, minus Slayer, increasing all of your damage in dungeons and trials and arenas by 5%, and weapon crit again, so our crit is high. Stamina bonus if you have the perfected version. If you don't, then you don't have the perfected extra trait, so you will be 1k stam less, but it doesn't matter. You can use the standard version if you want and get it from normal trials. Also, the main bonus for this is every light or heavy attack you do within 5 seconds of another will add a stack of wind on top, on top, on top, up to a stack of 20. As soon as you stop doing light or heavy attack damage, no matter how many stacks are there, it will fall off. And you have to start all over again. So, yes, it looks great on the dummy, because you can keep 100% uptime on it very easily by doing one light attack every 5 seconds, which you will do. But inside mechanics, you need to fully understand how it works. So if, for example, you have a couple of stacks of wind there, you can see the blue buff or debuff timer underneath the skeleton's name at the top there. Every time I reapply a light attack, the timer starts again, and it adds one more. If I stop light attacking, and I'm running around like a headless chicken, shouting, I don't know what to do, oh look, your damage fell off. Even though your dots are still running, your damage fell off. You must keep your light attacks up. So inside mechanics, if you have to move, keep your rotation up while you're moving, or keep some damage on the boss and keep a light attack from range. That's when your bow comes in really handy. You can still keep light attacks up, keep that ticking, and then come back in and carry on. That can contribute to a very large proportion of your overall DPS, and if you're not capable of keeping those stacks up all the time, you need to do one of two things. One, practice, or two, take it off, don't use it. Another choice, by the way, if you are capable of using it, because a lot of people are not, which is fine, is, where the hell did I put it? Alkosh. Now, if this doesn't make any sense to you, I'm going to explain it. This can go on instead. It has a crit bonus, just like Reliquin does. It has minus Slayer, just like Reliquin does. It has a weapon damage bonus instead of crit. And when you activate a synergy, you send a shockwave in front of you, doing physical damage initially, and then it does damage over time for 10 seconds. Each synergy you do, or each synergy you take, will give you another stacking damage over time. Now, this does reduce the target's physical and spell resistance by 310 for 10 seconds as well, per synergy, but they don't stack. That will just reapply. So the 310 is a flat bonus, it's a debuff, everybody benefits from it. It's in AoE as well, so it will actually contribute to multiple targets as long as you're aiming it straight. That debuff will just reapply and restart, and you have an uptime increase. The physical damage over time, however, the dot, does reapply. Now, I've been using this set for about 3 years on stamina DPSs very successfully, and it's really, really powerful as long as your group has got multiple synergies. If you're capable of keeping Reliquin up, of course, stick to Reliquin, that's absolutely fine. But if your group has got an abundance of synergies, anywhere between 3 and 4, maybe more, then you need to be putting on Alkosh, because every single synergy you take can apply an extra dot. Now, the way to look at that, of course, is when you're looking at combat metrics, it will just come up with Alkosh and it will say X amount of damage over time, and then that's it. You can't tell if it's got multiple procs or not. But if you look at the target, you will see a dot going over and over and over and over that doesn't ever crit. And apart from buffs, that can normally stay the same number. But when you take more than one, you'll see multiples of them, and another and another and another, depending on how many you've taken. And it can get stupid. The amount of damage output you can get from Alkosh is absolutely insane if your group is prepared for it. If not, then of course the choice is yours. So basically, you've got 3 choices here. You've got Reliquin, Alkosh, or Deadly. Deadly, if you just want to go flat. Alkosh, if you can keep up the synergies and aim them at the boss. And Reliquin, if you think you can keep up your light attacks. Okay, now I'm going to get into champion points, and I'm going to show you the rotation. First of all, 72 points into Ironclad to reduce the amount of damage we have coming in from direct damage. There's a lot of that in the game, so it really helps. 64 into Hardy and Elemental Defender, so that all of the damage that we take, regardless of what it is pretty much covered by 13% reduction. And also, you have a 19% reduction to damage over time effects, which also stack alongside these. Just note, by the way, you do have the Unchained passive now because of the amount of points in this tree. So if you do break free from anything, and you probably will, throw out a quick Caltrops. It's the most expensive thing we've got. It'll be really, really cheap. 19 points in a quick recovery, increasing all of our healing received. That does include heals from our sets and our passives. So this will actually help us. Also, because we've got 10 points in this tree, we have the Field Physician passive. If you res someone, while doing so, you will take 15% less damage. You res very, very fast as a Templar. This is really beneficial. 44 points into Warlord to reduce the cost of break free. 75 points into Tenacity, so if we do heavy attack, we get more back. And of course, Mooncalf increasing our stamina recovery by 14% as well. 76 points into Tumbling. You only need 72 here to get the benefit of 23% reduction to cost for dodge roll, but we've got 4 points spare. I'm not using them for anything. May as well chuck them in here. And for having 75 points in the tree, we actually get more higher quality items from chests when we loot stuff, so that's actually quite handy. Nothing in there. 18 points Master at Arms, increasing our direct damage by 8%. And in the meantime, 66 into Thermaturge, increasing all of our damage over time, which we have an abundance of. 61 points into Precise Strikes, increasing our critical damage by 21%, which is huge. We are utilizing some really high crit damage bonuses from our Shadow Munderstone, our own passives as a Templar, and our Minor Force as well. 61 points into Piercing. This will put you bang on the nose with all shiny buffs and debuffs to allow you to hit 18k pen, 18.2 in fact, a little bit more than that, very, very easily. Any less than this will put you under, and any more than this will put you over by too much, so you don't want to mess with this at all. Leave it where it is. Everything is covered in our setup. If you use other sets, by the way, if you decide that for you possibly like Unfathomable Darkness or anything that's got any penetrating values on them, you will need to alter this to accommodate that. 64 points in Mighty as well to give us an increase to all physical, poison, and disease damage by 13%. So these are very, very shiny indeed. We've got a lot of flat bonuses, a lot of good pen bonuses, and we've also got a really high crit damage bonus as well. This is absolutely solid. Amongst God knows how many weeks worth of testing so far. For this particular build, these did outperform other setups that I've had. But if you want to mess with them yourself and maybe even push them a different way, then it's entirely up to you. Now I'm going to go over the rotation. First of all, obviously you want to make sure that you've got your rune focus down. You do want that bonus to your extra healing, you want it for your resistance buff, and you want that recovery bonus. So keep that up at all times. First thing you should be putting down is a beast trap, and then we start from the back bar. So we'll go with Endless Hail first, light attack, poison injection, light attack, caltrops, light attack, ultimate, swap bars. Very, very simple. The next time you come to the back bar, Endless Hail, light attack, poison injection, light attack, caltrops, light attack. There's no ultimate, so we use the rune focus instead. Now, obviously, that's to keep up your rotation, to make sure that you can use your ultimate every second rotation and keep up your rune focus. So every one rotation, you finish with your ultimate, and every second rotation, you finish with your rune focus. Now, if you are extremely experienced, or you can keep up with it, when it comes to your rune focus rotation, don't fire that last. Fire caltrops last instead. So your rotation slightly changes. Volley, light, poison, light, rune focus, light, caltrops, swap. The reason being is you want the initial hit on the front bar to be stronger, and caltrops does have an initial hit. So you just swap really, really fast when you fire it. So when it's the ultimate, you fire the ultimate last, and when it's the rune focus, you fire the caltrops last. But if it's too complicated, just stick to the same routine as before. Volley, light, poison, light, caltrops, light, rune, swap. Very, very simple. Now, front bar is also quite simple, but you do have to get it in the right order. However, if you misplace the spear at the front or the end, don't panic. You will still keep the uptime on the Adric Spear passive for burning light. But what you need to do, basically, light attack, power the light to get that started. Then, light attack, run in slashes, light attack, bite and jabs. Light attack, spear, light attack, bite and jabs again, light attack, power the light. Now that may sound a little complicated. I will write it down, don't worry. But it's literally light power, light rending, light jabs. Light spear, light jabs, light power. Then before you swap, light attack, beast trap, swap again. If you want to make that really simple for you and not confuse yourself with where the spear should or shouldn't go, you can literally fire it after your two jabs. So you can go light power, light rending, light jabs, light spear, reapply power, beast trap, swap. Whichever one of the two orders suits you more, it's entirely up to you. But the main purpose of it is to keep this spear in the rotation at all times, at least once per rotation, so then this burn and light passive can be taken advantage of while we're stabbing shit. So I'm going to go over it again. I will write it on the written guide, don't worry. It's a lot simpler once you actually start pressing the buttons yourself rather than just looking at it, but we'll go like this. Beast trap first. Volley, light, poison, light, caltrops, ultimate, swap. Power the light, Brendan slashes, jab, spear, jab, power, light, beast trap, swap. Volley, light, poison, light, caltrops, light, rune, swap. Light power, light rending, light jab. Light spear, light jab, light power, light beast, swap. And we repeat. Volley, light, poison, light, caltrops, light, ultimate, swap. Just round and round and round and round and round. You never have to change it. Again, you can place your blazing spear wherever you like. You can do it before the jabs, you can do it after the jabs, you can do it in the middle. If you do it in the middle and you can keep up with that, it will actually perform a little bit better. But if not, then you're probably going to sacrifice maybe 1k DPS overall if you put it at the end. Now, if you do find that you are struggling with your sustain, the light attack jabs, replace it with a heavy attack jabs, as and when you need to. In fact, if you do that once every rotation, you will actually not run out of juice. So the choice is yours. And if you're using Storm Fist anyway, you pretty much can't run out. It's almost infinite sustain. It's absolutely nuts. But anyway, hopefully that helped. Hopefully that wasn't too confusing. Hopefully that wasn't too boring either. And hopefully you are happy with the new update to the Simplar build. First of all, thank you all very, very much for watching. I hugely appreciate the support. And if you are not subscribing already, please do hit that button. It is free. Furthermore, if you want to help support outside the channel, there are some links in the description for Patreon, Twitter, Facebook, and of course the website XynodeGaming.com. And also don't forget, I live stream on Twitch every night from 10 PM UK time, unless I say otherwise on Twitter. Once again, thank you all very, very much for watching, and I will see you in the next video. Bye-bye.